Whenever a truth teller arrives on the scene of history, the power structures start trembling. What they fear most is what truth costs them: power, wealth, control. So when truth tellers come, the establishment strikes back. Jesus overturned tables in the temple. They crucified him. Stephen was mighty in word and deed. They stoned him. Paul challenged the religious authorities. They tried to kill him again and again. Martin Luther nailed his theses to the door. The papacy wanted him burned. And 50 years ago, in 1976, Ronald Numbers published a book about Ellen G. White, Seventh-day Adventism's prophet. Let me tell you about Dr. Numbers. He wasn't just any writer. He was uniquely qualified for this task. Raised in the home of a fundamentalist Seventh-day Adventist preacher, educated in SDA schools, PhD in History of Science from UC Berkeley, taught at Andrews University, then became an assistant professor at Loma Linda University in 1970. In the early 1970s, he started work on what would become the first of many books. As he studied the evidence, he did something revolutionary. Instead of following the church's stance on Ellen White, he let the evidence lead him to a conclusion. That's what any great historian does. He wasn't writing sanitized history like so many before him. He wasn't inventing miracles or spinning fairy tales. He was presenting the historical facts: the good, the bad, and the ugly. The historical facts were far more damning than many Adventists imagined. That's when Dr. Numbers felt the wrath of the establishment. When a draft of his book leaked out, a firestorm erupted. The White estate blocked his access to key documents they refused to release. But that wasn't all. They did everything in their power to stop this brilliant man from publishing his book. In 1972, when Dr. Numbers met Arthur White for the first time, the first thing Arthur told him: don't make the mistake of going to an outside publisher. But that's exactly what Dr. Numbers wanted to do. He refused to be controlled by an SDA publisher that would only print what they permitted. Let me share some of the documents they blocked access to. The first was letter L6, 1864. It described Dr. James Caleb Jackson's phrenological examination of Ellen White's sons. A shocking letter, because Sister White told others that phrenology was evil. Just 2 years earlier, she'd written a testimony with God's opinion on phrenology. In it, she said Satan uses phrenology to deceive and destroy souls. She called phrenology a demon god, and Numbers had discovered her hypocrisy in a letter buried in the White estate vault. But the establishment refused to release it because it would expose Ellen White for what she really was: the spirit of hypocrisy. A second document they refused to release was W11, 1873. In that letter, John Harvey Kellogg described James White as a monomaniac on money matters. A monomaniac, someone with an excessive, obsessive, irrational fixation on one subject. Partial insanity, functional in most areas, but fixated on a single topic. In other words, James White was obsessed with money, and Kellogg was in a position to know. He worked closely with the Whites. It was all about money, wealth, building the White Empire. In 1974, Dr. Numbers sent his manuscript to the White estate. Arthur White refused to read it and locked it in the vault. Then he wrote a letter to the publisher, the main editor at Harper & Row, expressing concern about the manuscript. A manuscript he hadn't even read. The White estate kept asking Harper for delays. They brought in Ronald Graybill and all their top guns to eviscerate the manuscript. Dr. Numbers explained what they were doing. The purpose was very clear: to discredit my manuscript in the eyes of the editors at Harper's so they would not publish the volume. In January 1975, Arthur went to New York to meet the editor-in-chief of Harper and Row. He brought a briefcase full of documents to prove this was such an irresponsible work of history that they should have nothing to do with it. In February, Arthur returned to Harper, this time with Graybill and Robert Olson. They brought a 220-page document full of criticisms of Prophetess of Health. Arthur laid it on the editor's desk and told him they'd let him see it under one condition, that you never show it to Ron Numbers. Now let me ask you this. Who acts like that? Even the editor realized it wasn't fair. He wanted nothing to do with that deal. So, they tried to stop publication, but I believe God wanted Prophetess of Health published. I believe God wanted the truth to come out, and 50 years ago, it was published, unleashing a tsunami that rocked the foundations of Seventh-day Adventism. Since Arthur failed to block the publication, he was forced to do what his father and grandfather had done so often before: damage control. In 1976, the sect published a paperback edition of D.E. Robinson's Story of Our Health message, complete with a study guide for churches. They were pre-programming their members to ignore the truth when it came out. Arthur sent speakers to SDA institutions and churches to present his view of his grandmother. Then he prepared a small book attacking Prophetess of Health and sent it to every history and religion teacher in the sect. Why all this damage control? What was Arthur so afraid would destroy the White Empire? What was so shocking about this book? They learned that Ellen White got her health message not from God, but from Dr. Jackson. They learned that when she wrote out her health message, she plagiarized extensively from L.B. Coles. And there's so much more. Read it. It's online at Brother Anderson's website. Available in 4 languages. The book is meticulous. It's devastating. It's undeniable. It destroyed the myth that Ellen White was a prophet of God, receiving visions. The woman revealed in that book is a plagiarist and a hypocrite. I'm Lydia Sanchez, and this is the story of truth-teller Ronald Numbers, the man who dared to fact-check a prophet.